Now that we have a little introduction of what React basically is, let's try to make something in React. But before we do that, we gotta install something, and this is required because React comes along with a lot of tooling around it, and we're gonna see what all that tooling is. So let me take you to the tutorials page, or actually wait, the docs page. There is a section called Try React. We're gonna go there. It's gonna show how you can use it in online websites like Code Sandbox and CodePen. I'm here using something called Code Sandbox, but we're gonna learn how to install it on your own computer. And we're gonna start with something called, it says, as the title says, create a new React app. And there is something to do with it. And they have built a tool called Create React App to build it. So let's copy this code. And we're going to do npx create react app. What npx does it is it executes this create react app. It pulls it from npm and executes this command, and then we give the name of our app. So let me say hack your future demo. And what this will do, it will create a folder called hack your future demo. Inside of that, all the tooling required for building and developing a React app will be present. And I'm gonna, as soon as this installs, I'm gonna open up and show this to you. Meanwhile, we can learn about one or two different tooling that is involved here. And one of the most important tooling is something called Babel. No, wait, I should write Babel JavaScript to get the proper results, but let's see now. Babel JavaScript. So you might or might have not encountered this before, but this is a really, really important tool. What Babel allow us to do is write modern JavaScript, and it can convert it back to JavaScript 5, ES5, sorry, and which can run on all the browsers. So you can still write very modern JavaScript, even versions of JavaScript that has not been released yet or is not available in all the browsers, and you can still make it work with every browser pretty much. Let's see a little bit of an example. If I go here and I say convert everything from ES 2015, 16, blah, 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 and React, let's see if I write const name equal to, wow, okay, name equal to students, and it automatically converts it to var name equal to students instead of const, because const is in 2015 feature. If I say do not convert 2015, it will keep it in const, but const was released in 2015, and that's why if we enable to convert everything that was released even in 2015 to backwards compatibility, it converts the const into a var. Why does React need it? First of all, React comes with the default setup of Babel, so that we can still write very modern application, and we can write very modern code, and we'll still convert it to a code that runs in every browser. React essentially doesn't need Babel, but the toolchain that we are installing here, oh wow, it's still taking time, but the toolchain we are installing here called Create React App, it requires this so that we can write very modern code and still run it. But there is also one more thing, that how we saw JSX. Remember we were doing, let me pull up the browser window again. Yes, we were writing this thing, and I was very specific in saying that this is an HTML-like thing, but is not exactly HTML. What exactly it is. So let's see, let me remove all of this my input. I'll even remove the form. Let me just simply put here a div. Get rid of this, and inside of the div, let me write hello. So now we can see on the page there is hello, and then there is the div. It almost looks like this app is putting the div with the hello inside of this as it was HTML. But this is not really HTML, and we'll see how. I'm going to copy this code and put this in Babel. Remember, this is a function, so nothing is going to change. App is remaining the same. The third line is also, the closing bracket is the same. But when we see return, instead of these div, now it's putting react.createElement, and it is telling which element to create. There is a third argument which is null, and we'll see what is this argument. This argument is essentially the properties we could give to the div tag. We'll see what the properties mean. And third is the children between the div tag. This is important for React to work. In React, if you want to write this HTML-like syntax when you return your components, it will automatically be converted to a react.createElement call with the element you provided, with the children you provided, and also the property which we are not providing here right now. But let's provide a property, and I want to say HTML. Let's say there's nothing called a title inside, but I'll say title is a greeting. And now you can see the property comes in here called title greeting. So whatever properties you pass to your HTML tag essentially gets passed on here in the props. This is so whenever you look at React and you think it is returning an HTML, that is not true. This is something called JSX, and that is how we are getting to the Babel plugin React. It gets converted to a JavaScript call. There is a function called react.createElement that will take a tag of what element to create, what properties to pass, and these can be multiple. So we can have title, we can also have something called a style, and the style will itself be an object. So we can say background, or maybe I have to put it in quotes, background is red, let's say. So again, we can see that the react.createElement passes on a div. Since we are passing div, the two properties we pass to the div, title and style, are being put in the props argument, and the third argument is for the children that we provide, and that is hello. This is quite similar to how you have on JavaScript. On the DOM side, you have create element. Let me pull up some docs somewhere. W3 school, let's avoid that, and let's go to developer Mozilla. Document.createElement takes a similar sort of props, right? It takes a tag name, and you can create a tag. Let's see an example. Yeah, document.createElement div, and this is somewhere what React is doing under hood. Instead of document.createElement, it has react.createElement, and it's passing the div and passing all the extra property and passing all the children, which you can do it like here, document.createElement UL, and we are passing all the extra properties, and we can also pass children in the similar way as React does it. So under the hood, React is not dealing with HTML or an HTML-like thing. It is a JSX. But this JSX get directly converted to a JavaScript call using a react.createElement, which is very similar to document.createElement. I hope I can show you the Create React app by now. I think it is done, and I'll open the folder. I think it was called Hack Your Future Demo. Yeah, Hack Your Future Demo, and I'm opening it in my VS Code. Let me go on and expand this a little bit so that it's properly visible on the screen. Okay, so this whole folder has a lot of things. It has one folder called node modules, and you already know that the node modules are created from something called a package.json when we install that. So let's start looking at package.json. It took the name of the application we gave us. It has a few dependencies in it. This is the most important dependency. It is the React scripts. This is the part that involves all the tooling. So this has your Babel, which I showed you before, so that we can write the HTML-like syntax, which will automatically get converted to React.createElement, and also supporting most modern JavaScript features around. It also does a lot more things than we're going to see now, but it also installs React, and installs the latest version of React and React DOM. always remember that these two versions have to be in sync, or you can have very subtle bugs. It's putting up some libraries for testing, which we do not really care. But when you actually start developing real world applications and when you work in companies, you would need to write tests. And these are some very good libraries to use for testing. So package.json, package log is created because of the how npm install files. We have a git ignore that has ignored some files and folders. We'll see why. This has a readme, which is a really good readme. I would definitely say give at least 5-10 minutes and read it once you have made your application. This tells us that there are 2 modes to actually make the app. There are actually 3 modes. There is something called Npm Start that will run the app in development mode. Now, this is something you would be using the whole time while you are writing code, while you're changing. If you have a new feature to add, if you want to change style, every time till your product hasn't finished, till you haven't launched it, you will be just using Npm Start and put it in development mode. Npm test is to run tests. We are not going to do that. Probably in the last week, we'll see if we have time. Npm Run Build. This is the part where it will take all your JavaScript code, put it all together. We'll be writing code in different files. What it'll do is make one single file out of it, put every of your code together, optimize it. Also something called minimize it. Have you used minifiers before? If not, then basically you can write JavaScript code with like a lot of spaces and everything in your file page, and when you pass it through a minifier, it compresses all of your code so that it can be sent over the network very fast. And this is when we finally do npm run build. We'll have like one single file. I'll show you all of these steps now. Oh, also, yeah, let's start looking into the rest of the folders. There is a source folder. It has a lot of things right now, and we won't pretty much need any of these, so I will delete those. But basically, index.js is our entry point for our application. Always go and first look at index.js. Let's look at the important parts. We are importing React. We are importing something called React DOM. We are importing a CSS file. Actually, I don't care about a CSS file at this point, so I'm going to delete it so I can show you what a minimum setup would look like. Index.css deleted and everything would still work. There is an app. I think app is one of the components. Look how it looks like it is an HTML sort of a syntax, but it is not, as we saw before. There is service workers, which we do not really care about, so I'm gonna delete this, and so I'm gonna delete the service workers from the file as well. There is a setup test. I'm not gonna do any bit of the testing. I can safely delete it. If I'm deleting the testing setup, I can also delete the testing files. The setup did not get deleted. Let me just go and delete that. There is app.js. This was our component. So we again import React. We haven't imported React DOM. And what is React DOM? We'll go through that. We are doing a logo import. I think I already deleted the logo file. We don't care. And we can also delete app.css because I do not care about any CSS for the moment. And the logo was being used for displaying it in an image. I'm going to remove that too. Basically, this is the most minimal thing you can have. You can have an app.js and an index.js. The index.js React strict mode. Actually, we can get rid of this for now. It will only create confusion. So we haven't still run any bit of the code, and I'm just showing you what it was. We had React imported. We always need to import React. We'll see why. Actually, you already know why, because under the hood, this line, let's go and copy paste this in our Babel again. Under the hood, this line is React DOM render react.create element. So we need to have this React in our namespace somewhere. That's why we import it, even though we have not specifically used it, but under the hood, since this is react.create element, we have it. Let me zoom in a little bit more if that is gonna help. And then we do react dom.render. We render the component we want to render, and then we put a place where we're gonna render it. And now when we see the public folder, this is also automatically generated. All our concern is the index.html file. In this index.html file, there is some basic HTML stuff. This is the important thing here. We put a div with an ID root. And if we go look in the index, we are saying that we want to get the element by ID, which is the root element. And here we want to render this app component. Again, component was a bunch of HTML like syntax, which is JSX put together and which is reusable. So this app component is a bunch of JSX, and that is being rendered in place of the root element, and the root element is right here. So now let's just start with it. We'll do npm start. It's doing its thing. It's saying it's starting the development server. Let me bring this window down and right here so that we can see our changes as we go. So this might look slightly different on your page versus on mine, because I deleted a bunch of things and it now just looks a very blank page without any CSS or any images. And if you just directly run npm start after you do create React app, you will have a lot more things, but I just wanted to show you the most minimal setup that you can still have it. One really cool thing about this is, let me make the window small. Let's go into app.js. Here it says edit source / app.js and save to reload. So does this really work? We want to see that as soon as I press save, the page, the website here is going to reload. I press save, it's going to reload, and when we wrote does this really work, it automatically got on the page. And this really helps during development. You can start making changes to your code. Learn React, add hack your future, and immediately see those changes on your page. This dramatically improves how you do development, and this is really, really useful. You can go around and make new components. Let's make a new component. Let's call it button.js. Again, when we are starting making a new component, remember a few things. You have to always import React from React. Why this is important? Because as soon as we write any HTML-like syntax, it has to be converted to a react.createElement call, and for that we need React. Again, the component names have to be capitalized, so I will call it button. It will always be a function. Yes, there is one more thing called class-based components, but we are definitely not going to go through that. I'm just informing you there was one way to make class-based components where you use the JavaScript class syntax to write a component. We would not be covering in this course, and since last year mid or last year early, I think React has been moving on more towards function-based components. Now, since this is a function, this has to return something, and we're gonna return a simple button with some text inside of it called hello. We are not rendering it anywhere, but we should import it in our app.js. So here I'm gonna say import button from this import button. Oh wow. Okay, import button from the file nearby called button, and I'm gonna go try and render it, but this will not work right now, and let's see why it wouldn't. As soon as I said import button, and it says button doesn't really, let me zoom this in first, button doesn't contain a default export. So let's go and look at button, And yes, we are not exporting anything. So let me go here and say export default button, which means that if I'm trying to import anything from this file, by default, it will give us the button. And hey, now we have a button with the text hello on it. So now we have the button. We could make button as a component and import it in our main app and still render it. Now you can see we already have 3 different files, and when we ship this application, this is a very stupid application at this point right now, but when we're going to ship this application to our users, we are not going to give them like 3 separate files and then 20 separate files for the CSS and then some images and blah blah blah. We are going to give them a very compressed form of this application. So let's go and make that. So I'm gonna, in another terminal, I'm gonna run npm run build, and as soon as we do that, we will have one more folder here, and let's see how it works. This will take a little bit of time because this creates a very optimized build. It goes and minifies your code. It converts all your code to old JavaScript using Babel. It apparently did it fast. Okay, so let's see. There is a whole new folder called a build folder. This build folder has something static called JS. And in this, we have our main JavaScript. We have our index.html. And look, this is pretty much similar to this index.html. But this index.html has comments and has a lot of white space, but if we look the build folder index.html, it has been minified and compressed. It has no white space, it is all done in just one line, very compressed. And it has all our JavaScript as we saw already in the static.js folder. This is definitely not readable. It is not meant to be readable, so do not try to read it. If we, in our public folder, if we put our any assets, for example, the little bit of logo or the fav icons, you know, these things are called fav icons. That's in the title bar just before React app. And the index.html get automatically put in the build folder, but as well as whatever your application was using, all these files get converted to old JavaScript, gets compressed and gets put in the static.js folder. And this is something that you can start deploying to your main servers where user can go and access this directly. So now we know the 2 modes. One is for development where you will have the live reload, and the other is for creating these highly optimized builds. Let's see what else was there. There is testing for running tests. I've already deleted that setup and we are probably not going to go through this, but this is important and you should see it on your own. There is one more command called, oh, did I already execute it? Never mind. There's one more command called eject, and I wanted to show you this. So let me write npm run eject. And what it basically does is, since Create React app come with these toolings of the minifier and also the Babel and Webpack under the hood. Actually, wait, I should also show you what Webpack is. Let me quickly go to the Webpack's website and then I can show you how React uses this. Webpack is this tool which takes multiple of your JavaScript files and puts them together on how they are being used, which file imports which one. If a file is never being imported anywhere, it won't be in your final bundle, but Webpack is the one that is that has the responsibility of taking all your file. See here, it's also showing you that if there is a JavaScript file that is being dependent on some other file, there's a Sass file, which is a way to write CSS. There's an image file, JPG, PNG files. It will take all of them input and just give one file of each. For example, there will be just one JavaScript file. The images will come out as images, and there'll be like one CSS file. The Sass file gets converted to a CSS file. Let's see how it's done here. So when we do npm run eject, what create react app, there has been some Oh, there has been some changes in my files and it's not allowing me to do it. Let me quickly go and clean this up. I'm just going to remove the files that were currently in staging, and I'm just gonna delete all of my changes that we had already done. And I'm going to do npm run eject now. This is how the React app will look like when you start it. I just had deleted a lot of files and that's why it did not have a CSS or the spinning logo, but now I put back all the files again. Okay, so it's asking, do you want to permanently eject this? And this is a permanent action, which means once we have ejected all our configuration, and again, this is the configuration for using Babel, for using Webpack, and these are pretty complex configuration that has been made. So if you remove these, you will not be able to go back from that. And let's see what it means to go back. So remember, by now there was this build folder that we just had got after running npm run build, but we already had one public folder, one source folder, and this was quite minimal. The source folder has just a few files, the public folder again just have a few files. Now let me eject this, and now my package.json has exploded. Right, we can see there's so many things coming along. There are some TypeScript definition. That's a whole different thing. We don't need to. There's a lot of things for Babel. So we get all the Babel preset for React app, which helps us convert the JSX to React.createElement. We get a lot of ESLint. ESLint is super useful. It helps you catch JavaScript errors, and also just organizes your company's way of writing JavaScript. There is Webpack somewhere down here. Yes, there is a Webpack and Webpack dev server. Webpack dev server is for essentially running this dev server on your local host 3000. This is essentially running a server where it is pushing out these JavaScript files once after they go through Webpack. And the main Webpack is used for actually building up the whole application, which we saw when we run npm run build. All these commands are going to go the same. Now we have this folder called script, which has all of these commands. Remember, now the eject command has gone away since we have ejected it once, and there is no way to go back. There is no need to run that command again. We have a start, build, and a test script. These scripts are here. You can go and read them, but again, as I said, they are pretty complex and big. There is again the config, which has our actual Webpack config. It will somewhere have our Babel config as well, or maybe it's in the package.json file. Yes, our Babel config is also there. This is Babel's presets. It's using React app. In general, if you want to actually sometime go and tweak how your application is and blah blah blah, you want to control it, how it is being packaged. If you want to add a new JavaScript language featured through Babel, you would go and eject your create React app and then change your configuration. But I would highly recommend against it, because the stuff under the hood is quite complex. It's nice that they still give us a way to once we mature as a developer, we can go and make changes to how our code is being built. But before that, you really don't need to. So please do not run eject. I don't know how to just emphasize on this. I'll write it in bold here. Oh wait, this doesn't make it bold. Does this make it bold? Yeah. Do not run eject. Please don't. So now remember, to start the application, we'll use npm start or npm run start, and to build the application, we'll use npm run build. We are not going to test, and we do not want to do eject, so that we have tons of these things. Remember, even after ejecting, our whole application should work the same again. So if I do npm run start, oh, something has been missing. Let me check, why is this not working. Npm start. It's still installing some stuff for us, and that's why we couldn't install it. If we go npm install, then we would be able to start again.